Hello there everybody, here we are at the end of another year. A very interesting year it has been in 2025. So that begs the question, what is 2026 going to bring for us? What do you think is going to happen in the world of HiFi? I've been working in this industry coming up for 20 years, I think next February. And in that 20 years, I still don't think I can fathom out completely or understand how the HiFi industry works. It's an industry that is very difficult to predict. It's an industry that's very difficult, like I said, to understand how it works. Even after many years of working selling HiFi, there's a lot of things about selling HiFi and how it all works. I'm not going to go into great detail, but there's a lot of things I just don't know how it all works. So that brings me to the question of what are your predictions for 2026? But before that, I'm going to tell you my predictions for 2026. And to be honest with you, I haven't got a clue. I really do not have a clue what I think 2026 is going to pan out like. I'm lost. I've got no idea how things are going to go. What I do think is going to happen in 2026, I think we're going to see the onward march of Chinese manufacturers. I think they've fully understood the HiFi market, and the HiFi market to me now has sort of separated into two completely different markets. You've got the Chinese market, which sort of covers entry-level products, and then you've got the high-end market. And I think there's a big division between the two of them. Let me explain. Let me go into a little bit more detail to sort of try and explain what I mean by that. The Chinese have, to me, in my opinion, I basically think the Chinese have saved the HiFi industry. And the reason I say that is because when I look at the pricing of high-end audio nowadays, to me it's absurd. It's ridiculous, the cost of how much high-end HiFi costs. Now I might be just saying that because I'm not the richest man in the world. I'm not a Premiership footballer. I'm not a film star. I haven't got that kind of money to spend on a HiFi system. So me personally, the high-end HiFi, I'm not particularly interested in those sort of products and those sort of, to me, ridiculous kind of prices. On the other hand, I say you've got the Chinese who sort of swept up and they fully understood that a lot of people like to have a great sounding HiFi, but they can't afford these prices that seem to have gone up and up and up and up in price. So they've catered for that end of the market. I don't think there's a sort of a middle market left per se anymore. The Chinese to me have done a wonderful job, and I think a lot of people don't like the fact that they're Chinese or it's made in China because of political reasons or whatever. Personally, I'm not interested in that. I look at the manufacturer purely as a company and the products they produce. And to be honest, they've produced or are continuing to produce some absolutely outstanding value for money for products, value for money HiFi products. And I think that is going to continue into 2026 because we can see just how innovative these brands are, and they're putting a lot of features into products that maybe 10-15 years ago would have cost us people that love music, a few £1,000s, where now that is available and affordable for many, many more people. And like I say, I think in 2026 we're going to see that continue, and I think we're probably going to see, I think we'll probably see the high-end market, the traditional sort of high-end market sort of shrinking more and more, because I think, well, looking around England, I don't think there's many people that have got much disposable income, and the only people that seem to be able to afford this sort of ultra high-end hi-fi are people who are men who are spending their pensions. They're the only people that have now got disposable income to spend on those kind of products, where the normal family man, his disposable income has been completely wiped out by the cost of living. So he's now seeing the value in, like I said, these high value Chinese products. So that is basically my thought of how the market's going to go in the next year. I think we're going to continue like what we've seen in the past year, the domination of Chinese brands. I see, looking around, that the headphone market, the earphone market, headphone amplifiers, portable audio is it's been absorbed by a lot of young people, and the new upcoming generation of buyers are sort of particularly interested in sort of desktop audio, earbuds, headphones, etc., etc. I think the problem for HiFi, again, everything I say is relating to the UK, and the problem we have in the UK is that houses aren't particularly that big. When you look at a new build house, the room, so if you're lucky, you might get a 3x4 metre living room, and that's not really ideal for putting in a sort of massive hi-fi system. I think the days of preamplifiers, monoblocks and big massive speakers are going to be drawing to an end, because, like I say, I think we just don't have the space anymore, because, like I say, houses are getting smaller and smaller. And when I speak to people, you know, they've got neighbours. There's just no way that they can have these big, massive, powerful, space-consuming hi-fi systems. I'm not talking about everybody. I mean, there are people that are very fortunate that they may have a detached house. They may have a detached house that doesn't have neighbours. They might have the space to be able to put a more powerful, louder, bigger hi-fi system in. But I'm talking about the general hi-fi market here. Again, I'm talking about the general public that might want a hi-fi system, that live a normal life and live in a normal house here in the UK. I know when I was living in Spain, I know that most people live in apartments, and the walls, like the UK, basically you can hear your neighbour from one house or one apartment into the next one. So again, you're faced with that problem of sound transmission. And to me, little active speakers, little active desktop speakers, or little active speakers on stands or on a shelf in your room, to me sort of make perfect sense. All you really need is a streaming preamplifier and a pair of active loudspeakers, and you're going to end up with a fantastic sounding hi-fi system just by using two boxes. That's how far we've come. You can have a brilliant sounding hi-fi system these days that don't take up much space, and it's just two tiny little boxes. We're very lucky, I think, in 2026 that we're spoiled for choice when it comes to hi-fi. In fact, to be honest, I'd probably say there is too much choice of brands. It's too competitive. There are too many brands. When I think of earbuds, again, going back to earbuds, I think there's too many brands making earbuds. It's just hyper competitive. The same can be said for, I think, speakers. There are so many different speaker manufacturers now that the market is literally saturated with speakers. And I just don't think there is enough buyers to go around for the amount of speakers that are being made. I just think there's too many. When, for example, you think of a camera manufacturer, there's probably only 4 or 5 major camera manufacturers. So when people buy a camera, they might buy a Canon, a Nikon, a Sony, a Panasonic, a Fuji, or 1 or 2 others. It's very, very limited. But when it comes to speakers, you've got literally hundreds of brands to choose from. So how does everybody survive as the market gets smaller and smaller? So it's going to be interesting, I think, next few years in the hi-fi industry. I say it's very, very difficult to predict exactly what is going to happen. As I say, like I said, I've been doing this for 20 years and there's just some things that just don't make sense to me. People that know me, that family members or whoever, customers, I sort of, I'm quite chatty when people come around here, and I sort of give my thoughts on things. Will probably know that there's a lot of things I just can't understand. Like I say, I just don't understand how everything works in this industry. So that's sort of my thoughts of what's going to be happening in the next year, in 2026. So please give me your thoughts. What do you think is going to happen in 2026? What do you think the future is going to be for hi-fi? What would you like to see happening in the hi-fi industry? What kind of products interest you? What do you feel about the pricing of the hi-fi industry? Do you think it's becoming too expensive, some of this sort of high-end gear? I mean, it obviously caters for somebody because otherwise they wouldn't make it. So I might be wrong. But again, what do you think about the way the high-end hi-fi market is going? I look forward to your thoughts on this. It's an interesting subject. I would really like to sort of get a little bit of feedback, sort of, as I say, wanting to know what other people feel is going on in the industry, what they would like, what kind of products they're interested in, what products they're not interested in, etc, etc, etc. So there we go, just a brief little thing of my thoughts or what's going to be happening next year. Please leave your comments, I look forward to reading them, and let's see what happens, shall we? Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care and enjoy 2026.